going to discuss about solving problems using Venn diagrams. A teacher announces that out of 35 students in class, 25 passed both math and science tests, 30 passed the science test, and 28 passed the science test. So, we use concepts of Venn diagrams in answering questions like this. So, how many students passed science only? There are two circles in the diagram because there are two subjects involved in the problem who passed the math and the other passed the science test. So we put the entries now of the Venn diagram. So always remember in writing the entries of the Venn diagram, always start with the intersection. So the one on the middle of the circles. So given the problem, you have 25 passed both the math and science test. So we write 25 in the middle. Then next we have for math, so 30 students passed the math test. So out of 30, there are already 25 who passed math and science. So by performing subtraction, we have 30 minus 25, that gives you 5. So 5 is written on this region. So out of 28, there are already 25 students who passed math and science test as well. So therefore, we have only 3 students left. Then, of course, don't forget the label universal set at the top of the rectangular region. From the given figure, how many students pass science only? There are 3 students who pass the science test only. How many students pass math only? So therefore, there are 5 students who pass the mathematics test only. How many students pass either math or science? So the term "or" suggests union of sets, meaning so we add all the entries inside these circles. There are 33 students. How many students that pass either the math or the science test? So as you see, the total of the entries inside the circles is 33. There are 35 students in a class. So by performing subtraction, we have 2. 2 students. So 2 is written, by the way, outside the circles. So it is part still of the universal set. Let's have another example. 100 students are surveyed on their preference in movies. So 50 like sci-fi, 59 like comedy, 32 like horror, 16 like horror and comedy, 18 like comedy and sci-fi, 22 like horror and sci-fi, and 10 like all 3. So given this problem, there are 3 circles in the Venn diagram. Always remember, in constructing your Venn diagram, always put labels to it. So, of course, the universal set U. Then we let H is represented by horror, S is represented by sci-fi, and C represents comedy. Now, how do we enter this data on the tree-set diagram? So always remember, we start with the intersections. So we start with the innermost part, the one in the middle. So based on the given data results, we write 10 on the middlemost portion. We have 22 like horror and sci-fi. So horror and sci-fi is located on this region. So as you see on the diagram, there are already 10 who like horror and sci-fi, also comedy. So by subtraction, we have 22 minus 10. So that gives you 12. So as you see, the total of this will be 22. Now, we have comedy and sci-fi. So comedy and sci-fi is located on this region. Now, so there are a total of 18 who like comedy and sci-fi. So since on the given, that there's already 10. So by subtraction, we have 18 minus 10. That gives you 8. Next, 16 like horror and comedy. So out of 16, there are already 10. So that would be 16 minus 10 gives you 6. So horror says that there are 32 students who like horror movies. So with this, the total of this set, particularly this circle, must be 32. So we have already 10, 12, and 6. That gives you a total of 28. So now, by subtraction, so we have 32 minus 28. So therefore, the difference will be 4. Next, we have sci-fi. So sci-fi has a total of 50 students. So we have 10, 12, and 8. So that gives you 30 in total. So 50 minus 30, that gives you 20. And lastly, comedy. So there are 59 students who like comedy. So as you see, we have 6, 8, and 10. So the sum of the three is 24. So we have 59 minus 24. So that gives you 35 students. So are there elements outside of the 3 circles? So let's add all the entries inside the 3 circles. We have 95. So again, there are 100 students surveyed on their preference in movies. We write 5 on the outside. Now let's answer the following. So how many students like comedy only? So based on the given diagram, it shows that there are 35 students who like comedy only. Next, how many of the students like sci-fi only? So as you see the diagram, so there are 20 students. How many who like horror or sci-fi? So meaning, or it represents union of the two sets. So meaning we add all the entries of the whole circle of horror part and the sci-fi part. That gives you a total of 60 students. Next, how many who like horror and comedy but not sci-fi? Meaning they both like horror and comedy, but they do not like sci-fi. It shows this region. So therefore, that will be 6 students. How many who like horror, sci-fi, and comedy? The middlemost portion. So therefore, there are 10 students. How many do not like any of these 3 types of movies? There are 5 students. Always bear in mind that in writing entries on the Venn diagram, always start with the intersections. If there are 2 circles, always start with the middle. If you have 3, you start with the middlemost before you go with the other intersection. So that's it for our lesson for today. So I hope you learned from this lesson. Thank you and God bless.